Hello, hello. We are going to get started in just a minute. We are very happy to have you guys here tonight. And if you just give us just a couple, well, not really a couple, but maybe one more minute, we'll get started with our special guest tonight, Miss Sherry Deutschman. We're so excited to have her. So we will get started in just a second. We're just kind of waiting for a few more people to log in. Hope everybody is doing well tonight. I hope everybody has plans to enjoy this beautiful weather this weekend outside, socially distanced. Hope people are getting excited about Thanksgiving and all the food that we get to consume for Thanksgiving and then work out hard afterwards. That's all.
Is that a requirement? We have to work out?
Well, it's kind of like you don't want it to stay with you. Let me just say, you don't want to carry that into the new year. We don't carry Thanksgiving and Christmas food into the new year.
We don't.
It's too hard to get off. It's just really too hard. It's easier to get off when you first put it on versus when you put it on and put it on and put it on. So
yes,
it's easier to maintain.
Yeah. So eat on Thursday, take a nice walk in the park on Friday. Anything is better than nothing. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I welcome everyone to our program tonight. My name is Stephanie Williams, and I am the president of the Women's Political Collaborative. We thank you for being here this evening and joining us for this book review that we have. We are quite excited to have Miss Sherry Deutschman with us tonight to discuss her book, Lunch with Lucy, and former president of the Women's Political Collaborative, Lolita Tony, joins us. She did such a great job. I guess, was it our last book club, Lolita, or the one, or book review, or the one before that?
Yeah, this is my third one. This is my third one.
So we keep bringing her back because she kind of knows what she's doing. She got to flow with this. So it's working for us, y'all. We've had 8 book reviews this year. They have been exciting. It is one of the positive things about COVID. This book review that the Women's Political Collaborative does really is a creation that we came up with because of COVID, trying to go virtual with programming and things to keep people engaged. But we love it so much. It's been so good for us, and we've gotten great feedback about it that we are going to carry it over into next year. So please watch our website for upcoming events and authors and books. And we want to hear from you as well. If you've got a great book suggestion, we're happy to get it and to put it on the calendar and discuss it. So we're very excited about that. Also, if you are not a member of the Women's Political Collaborative, we invite you to join our organization. It is the members that keep us going, that allow us to fulfill our mission and to advocate for women in legislative areas, to continue to educate and enrich the community with our programming efforts. You can simply join by going to our website at WPCTN.com. And joining is very simple, and you will get the added benefits of being a member. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Miss Lolita Tony.
All right. Well, thank you, Stephanie. And Stephanie is doing an incredible job as current board chair for the Women's Political Collaborative. We're so happy to have you here with us. Stephanie actually does a book club herself through the juvenile court system that she goes into and spends time with those young people, and they have a book club. So thank you for that work, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to do. Thank you so much.
So it's a pleasure to be here, and we appreciate the Women's Political Collaborative for having us for this book club discussion. One of the things we were, Joyce charged us with, who is executive director, to have women authors who have a local, and so as in per fashion for Joyce, we typically have a conversation, and she'll ask me, well, Lolita, who do you know, or what book? And so I had the privilege of reading Sherry's book earlier this year as part of the Studio Bank Women's Connect event, and I was just so impressed and with the transparency, with how authentic it was, and just how just good the book was. I said we should definitely have Sherry on here to about her book Lunch with Lucy. I'm very honored to have Sherry, and I'm about to share her bio with you, and then you'll really understand how wonderful it is for her to spend this evening with us. So Sherry Stewart Deutschman is a serial entrepreneur, author, and passionate advocate for entrepreneurship. In 2019, Sherry founded Brain Trust, a company dedicated to helping women entrepreneurs grow their businesses to $1 billion in annual revenue and beyond. Prior to founding Brain Trust, Sherry was founder and CEO of Letter Logic Incorporated, a company she grew to $40 million and sold in 2016. Letter Logic was named an Inc. 5000 company, fast growing privately held business in the US for 10 consecutive years. Sherry attributes the success of Letter Logic to its unique culture in which the needs of the came before those of the customer or shareholder. That culture led Sherry to be recognized by Ernst & Young as one of their 2009 entrepreneurial winning women, and Logic was featured in the New York Times, Forbes magazine, Business Leaders, Inc., and Fast Company. Sherry was honored by President Barack Obama as a White House Champion of Change in 2016. Sherry's book, Lunch with Lucy, Maximize Profits by Investing in Your People, was released March 20th, 2020. And she did all of this, and she has a wonderful daughter at the same time. So she was being mom, CEO, and being Lucy at lunch while growing this company to $40 million. So it is truly an honor and a pleasure to have you with us tonight, Sherry. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a joy.
So we're going to dive right in. Lunch with Lucy. So what inspired you to write this book? It's full of so many wonderful nuggets of wisdom, but what made you decide to put these nuggets to paper and to then, provide it for all of us to learn and grow from?
Well, our company started getting a lot of attention early on because we were a fast growth company. And there are very few women-owned businesses. In fact, 1.7% of women-owned businesses get to $1 million in revenue. And so when we did in our second year, we started getting a lot of attention. And so then I got invited to speak on panels, and invariably I talked about the company culture because I think that's why we were successful. And as I told the story and told about the benefits of the company, I think people were incredulous that we provided the type of benefits that we did. And people would often stand up, ask a question, and then say, "You've got to write a book." And I was able to testify before a congressional subcommittee several years ago. And even in that place, they said, "You've got to write a book." So I sat down and wrote a book, which is not as easy as it sounds.
Well, and I love that it's Lunch with Lucy, who is your alter ego, to
Yes.
allow the employees the comfort of having a authentic, transparent conversation with you. And I like the fact that you allow them to select where to go. So that you would not overpower, your presence would not overpower what the purpose of that conversation was. So when you started to do these lunch, what was something that happened that was like, I did not expect that?
Well, I reserved every Wednesday at lunch for the employees, but one young man said, "My mom is moving to Hawaii, and she is terrified about leaving me here alone." I think maybe he was 24, 25. And he said, "She wants to meet you. Can I bring her to lunch with Lucy?" And I said, "Of course." And then the next day he said, "Well, actually, my mom wants it to be a dinner with Lucy. Is that okay?" And I said, "Sure." And then he said, "Is it all right if my roommates come?" And I'm like, "Sure." And it ended up to be 8 or 10 of us at dinner at the Southern So we had an $800 dinner tab that night, about half of which was alcohol. But his mom, was able to move off to Hawaii knowing that her son had this second mom at work and that he was in good hands. So that was one of the most unexpected, but I learned so much during those lunches. I really got to know about people's personal struggles. I got to know way too much about their love lives because they would tell me. I got to learn what they thought I was doing right or wrong as a boss. And they knew that I listened because they could see the actions that I took subsequent to those lunches. And, I had it be lunch with Lucy because I felt it was too intimidating to say, sign up for lunch with the CEO. But Lucy, that's kind of easy, right? And non-threatening. But it turned out to be the most important time I spent in growing my business. Nothing compared to the value of that hour and a half I spent every Wednesday with an employee.
You about what a great listener you are and what a gift it will employees would share information, even difficult things with you. How did you learn to, or how did you become so able to accept that? Because that can be hard sometimes to hear what you're not doing well or what someone may not like, or, or you may have a different thought in your head about the way a certain scenario played out. So how did you get yourself so comfortable with that?
I'm a freak. I'm one of those people that you can compliment me all day long and I can't hear it. I don't believe it's sincere, but you give me some criticism, I can latch onto that. And I've always been that way, and I would much rather you tell me what I'm doing wrong than to brag on something I'm doing right, because then I can own that, and it gives me something to work on to get better about. So I even had a process in my company where the employees did an annual evaluation of me. So all the employees are used to having evaluations, but they did an evaluation of me. And we brought in a third party who interviewed all the employees about what I was doing right or wrong, what I should stop doing and what I should start doing. And then she assimilated all of that so that it would be anonymous, and then gave the results to me and said, this is what they want you to work on. And this is what they think you're good at, and this is where you suck. And I listened. I really intently listened to them. They were, my family.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about that. You said, it's a family, and a lot of companies say family, and it seems more like just the statement of the moment more than sincere. But when you said that you put your employees first, and not the customer, not the shareholder, and in particular when there was a young woman who had a real indignant client, and when you saw how that client was treating that particular staff member, how you stepped forward and said, we're going to put a kibosh to this because we not have our employees treated that way. And she said she felt at that moment like you were her big sister stepping in for her. So that was truly the culture and the way that you operated there at Letter Logic.
Yeah, one of my friends has a book out too, Michael Brody Waite, and he has a podcast series right now, and I love him. But he is just saying employees are not family, and that's trite and silly to think of them in that way. And that might be true for a lot of companies, but it wasn't for us. And I describe it as because companies are dysfunctional, and there's a lot of backbiting in companies, in families. But in our company, we considered each other as the favorite cousin, because we've all got a favorite cousin. And that's how we treated one another. And the fact that we let employees bring their kids and their pets to work really furthered that notion. And when we had company events like our summer parties, our winter parties, we had them bring their extended family, anybody they wanted to bring. So they were bringing their parents and their children's grandparents and nieces and nephews. And because and most of the events were at my home, and so sometimes we'd have 150 people running around our house and our backyard. But it really furthered that notion of being family, because all of their family members were there meeting each other and getting close to one another. And the fact that I met with potential clients, to sit across a table from a potential client, and mind you, these were big healthcare systems, and to look them right in the eye and tell them, I want your business, but you have to understand that I don't believe the customer comes first. My employees come first, and they always will. And let me tell you what that means, but let me tell you how that will benefit you. And I did that routinely with clients, and the employees knew it. And they knew that was even part of our marketing. It became part of our marketing that the employees were first. And so they knew that publicly and privately, they were the most important thing. And it is why we were successful. You know, our benefits, for those of you that haven't had a chance to read the book, our benefits included a fair living wage. And that's what I addressed Congress about. But and I could talk to you about all day long about what that means, but we also paid for 100% of everybody's medical, dental, disability, and life insurance, helped them buy their first home with a gift for the down payment of their first house. Again, letting them bring their kids and their pets, paying them by the mile if they walked or biked to work, helping them start their own businesses if they wanted to by investing in their business, and then moving them from job to job within the company so they could learn the various aspects of running a business. And then the most important benefit we had, was absolutely critical to our success, was where every month we distributed 10% of the profits, but we distributed it evenly so that the CFO got the same thing the janitor got. And boy, that created an incredible culture of working together. I felt like everybody was so deeply woven together toward our mutual goals because of that, because they were all equal in that moment, and that they started developing empathy and kindness for one another that was very family-like. That was a really long answer. Sorry about that.
Okay, so Lolita fell off here for a minute, so I am having to kind of go here from here. So tell me, I want to do something with my kids. Here she comes back. Lolita, you back? Give me 2 seconds, Lolita.
All right. Okay. I'm back. I had to come the other way.
Like that backdrop. That looks good.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. I got kicked off and had to try to get back on here. Sorry about that. There we go. Okay, I am so sorry. My apologies. Let's pick up where we left off here. So you talk about too, Sherry, feeling like you had imposter syndrome, which is a interesting term, and we've heard some other people talk about that. And you say, when you were working with your coach, how she kind of rolled up the piece of paper and said, "Here, let's not talk about that anymore. Let's move forward." So have you moved on from feeling that way, or do you still sometimes feel like you have imposter syndrome? And for those who may not be familiar, would you explain what that is?
Yeah, I used to think that only women felt that, but Mark, my husband Mark, says he's felt it before too, where you feel like you aren't deserving of the success you've had, and that any moment now somebody is going to come in and expose me for the failure that I really am inside. And so, yeah, now I've started this new company, and I have all these young women here in Nashville, and soon expanding to the entire nation, and have them looking to me for guidance in growing their businesses. And sometimes I'll come home and tell Mark, "Oh, what was I thinking? how could I possibly think that I have anything of value to share with them? And then he's really good at, boosting me and making me realize you do have something, and shut up and move on. But I think that it's a pretty common feeling.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of your husband, Mark, it's really cute, the story you tell when you were, when you got his name off the bathroom stall. And I remember those, and maybe they still are there, the little graffiti things that are on the back of the bathroom stalls, how your daughter saw that and said, maybe you should give him a call to sell your home. And then you were flirty with him, and he was not having it at the moment. And I love that he had the integrity to say, it's not appropriate for me to do that while you are a client. But once you become a client, then we can date.
Oh, I have to tell you, I flirted with him so mercilessly that I had this in the book first, and my editors took it out, and he would not even acknowledge I was a girl. So I decided he was gay, and but I wasn't sure. So I actually called Village Real Estate and just said, I have a friend who's interested in Mark Deutschman, and we just want to know whether or not is he gay. And she said, absolutely. No, he's not gay. He's married. And I was like, he's married? And she said, well, actually, he's going through a divorce right now. So I went from, what, he's married, to, oh. And so eventually, when I was no longer a client, he finally got around to asking me out.
That's a really cute story, how you got there. The fact that your friend on the very first meeting with him was already scouting him for you. But you hadn't gotten to that point yet, because you were, I guess, more focused on the business at that point.
I was just more focused on that condo I was trying to buy, and not Mark. And truthfully, Mark's not my type, and I'm not his type. And we are perfect together, and we're crazy about each other. So it worked out.
That was a really great story in there. You talk about saying no, and I often say, I have a lot of respect when someone tells me no, because that means that they are really thinking about what these are, and that when they do say yes, full attention, and they will be fully committed. So it's okay to tell me no, or not right now, than to tell me yes and not be fully committed. And so I love the nuggets of how you even share with people how you can say no, so you don't get yourself backed into a corner trying to, kind of pedal your way out with someone's rebuttals to that. So what got you to that point of being able to say no so with such grace and ease?
Realizing that saying yes was killing me.
Mm-hmm.
I was absolutely exhausted. And I feel like a hypocrite talking about it now, because I go through cycles where I'm really good at saying no and guarding my time. Mm-hmm. And then, then I get weak and I start saying yes to too many things, and I find myself back in that cycle. But, I keep going back to that quote. I've used it 20 times this week from Warren Buffett, that the difference between successful people and very successful people is that very successful people say no to almost everything. And he is right. and I felt the power when I finally said no to people. I would say, thank you for thinking of me, but no. And then if I had $1 for every time that I got this reaction, I would be rich. The people would say, oh, I wish I could do what you just did. Mm-hmm. Just saying no, that's all you have to do. And, in the book, I explain how when you start giving a lot of explanations or excuses, all you're doing is giving people a way to sucker you back into saying no, saying yes to the very thing you just said no to. It's a constant. So I have learned that when I say no and start showing respect for my own time and my own schedule, that people start respecting it more too. And I remember the story of my friend Ginger Jones several years ago. She was doing speaking gigs, and I think she charged like $10,000 an event, but she was doing so many for free just to get her name out there. And she said, I've got to stop doing this. So she felt bad about turning one of those gigs down. But the next week got an invitation to speak, which would have been at that very same time that she was going to do that one for free. But the new one was in Hawaii, all expenses paid, and they were giving her the $10,000 fee.
Wow.
So I think every time you say no to something, you give yourself the opportunity to say yes to something better. And you also give other people the opportunity to say yes. And so, I try to, a lot of opportunities that come my way, push it to other women. Like, people are sick of seeing me, shine the light on another woman for a while.
Well, that was definitely a no that was worth saying, so she could say yes to that Hawaii $10,000
Yeah,
all expenses paid opportunity. That was definitely it. And you said something, which you talk about, sometimes, particularly as women, we always think about trying to get our foot in the door. And so we will do something that we know is not in our best interest, just so we can get our foot in the door, because then that will lead to, or that, and I like that you say, but it never really does. We just end up.
It doesn't. And it marginalizes us.
Yeah.
It does. And I think about how many times I've gone to networking events that I know are not a valuable use of my time, but I've talked myself into, well, I've really been trying to get in front of so-and-so. And what if she's there and I'm not there? Or what if I'm not there and this person I really, one of my competitors is there and she is the one that's getting all the leads. So I would go to the event and neither one of those people were there because they knew it was a waste of time. And I just wasted my evening. So I just started learning to say no more. And I think really I was asked to speak once about work-life balance, and I was saying no. And Mark said, why are you saying no to that? And I was like, because you, of all people, know that I have no balance. And he said, actually, you've gotten a lot better about it. When you started saying no, you started getting work-life balance. And so I recognize that now, that's one of the few ways that women can start. I don't think there's ever a true balance, but it's a way you can start kind of getting a grip on it.
There's nothing more frustrating than when you have done that, when it's something that you really earnestly feel like you should have said no to, but then you talk yourself out of the no by those things. Well, what if? And then you get there and none of that is there, and you thought, oh, I knew I should have just went home.
Yeah.
I could just kick myself.
Yeah. Or times I've said yes to things, and because I was so overcommitted already, I ended up doing a crappy job of it, and it hurts your reputation. And saying yes out of guilt, but you would have been much better off saying no and letting someone that was able to do a good job of it take it on.
One of the things that is woven throughout the whole fabric of this book is your transparency and your ability to be authentic in all the decisions, even when there was a situation that was less than desirable. You take a moment to convey what your role in that might have been, how you might could do that differently next time, or maybe how maybe you didn't show up in the way that you should have for that person to make that situation different. And I think that takes a really big person to do that, because oftentimes it's just really easy just to say, no, that was a bad decision that Bob made, and Bob is just not great. But you would say, yes, it was a decision that was not in the best interest of the company, but perhaps I should have onboarded them differently or spent more time. And so was that something that you grew to in your leadership? And at what point did you start to do that? Or was that just something that you learned out? Because I know you had several sales careers prior. So was that something you picked up there and automatically took with you to Letter Logic, or was it something that you kind of grew into?
I think that it was probably born from my background as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and my father, who was a very devout witness, who kind of beat into us the the notion of being honest and taking responsibility and not lying or not trying to cover up, and realizing that as the CEO of the company, everything is ultimately my responsibility. It's either I didn't train a person right, or I didn't onboard them right, or I didn't, it always comes back to me. So I've made it in our company practically the only thing you could be fired for, never fired for mistakes. In fact, we celebrated mistakes, but being fired for lying about something or covering it up. And so I had to lead that way by, we had a monthly, or a quarterly mistake quota, where you were required to come to a meeting and talk about the biggest mistake you made and what you learned from it. And I always started it myself, because my mistakes were generally bigger than anybody else's, or impacted us greater than anyone else's. And it gave them comfort in knowing that they weren't going to be punished for their screw up. So we were just going to all hear about it and learn from it. And because we were learning from it, to celebrate it.
That's great. So I'm going to open it up for questions, because I have so many questions. There's so many different nuggets in here. I could go on all night about
Thank you.
some of the questions here, but I want, if some of the people who are on want to ask a question, I want to allow some time for that. So is everyone unmuted?
So we can unmute, anybody can unmute. If you want to turn on your videos now, you may do so. If I need to turn, I can ask to start the videos. Anybody who wants to. I'm asking, I'm trying to get these, anybody who wants to and can ask questions. Okay, Cretch, if you have a question. You have to unmute, Kay.
Yeah, how did you get the employees comfortable though with bringing their mistakes forward? Because it's a great opportunity for learning, but the dying from embarrassment part, or it's a humbling experience. And so how did you turn it into something that they wanted to talk about?
I started with the leadership team. I started doing it with them first and getting them comfortable with it. And then they took it to their individual departments. So it was easier in a smaller setting like that with people they worked with every day, because generally your people knew about, the people you work with closely knew about your screw ups. But it gave them a little more comfort in talking about it. So it wasn't a company-wide thing, it was departmental. And I was really close to my senior leadership team. We were 60% female, and we were we just had a culture of openness and honesty that's probably attributed really to me and my willingness to admit when I screwed up and take ownership, and sometimes even tell them about screw ups that they never would have known about otherwise. It just felt like it was the right thing to do.
Was there a chance when one of those screw ups really allowed for a really big change and improvement in the business?
Sure. There was so many things, which is why we revealed them, because then we could talk about what led to a bad decision or a mistake, and unpack it so that we could fix it. So there was in particular a policy change that I'd made. We were guaranteeing all the employees a 40-hour work week, even when we may have had a low volume and had a 30-hour work week. And we had a new manager in who said, "That's stupid, you shouldn't be doing that." And I listened to him and changed it. And actually that whole department ganged up on me at a lunch with Lucy, and we went to lunch and we talked about it. And they told me how it negatively had impacted their families and how it was a bad decision. And I listened to them and came back and immediately changed it back. But I talked to the whole company about it and said, I screwed up, and this is why I made that decision. And this is why I backtracked on that decision. And so I think the fact that I never covered up my own mistakes and was just vocal about it made them feel comfortable and safe that they could do the same. Thank you.
Anyone else have questions? I just texted somebody and said, ask a question. The response back, you'll love this, was, quote, all I want to do is ask her if she's hiring, will she hire me?
It's funny, when we would present our services to these healthcare systems nationwide, I can't tell you how many times people would say that at the table, or jokingly, usually, but they'll say, where do we sign? We're ready. But then, we had even Stanford University Medical Center, when they chose us, they wrote us a letter and said, we wanted you to know that you were the most expensive. In fact, you were 10% higher than the next highest bidder. And yet we chose you because of the culture. And we could see how that was going to affect the service that we got. And, it enabled us to be the most expensive in the nation. And yet still to grow. It did not hinder our growth at all.
So do you see, since you sold, the same culture going on in the business?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, here's another 30 minutes.
Oh, I could go on a tirade now. So it was an interesting deal. It was an all cash deal. And I announced it to the employees on a Monday that I had sold the company. And the next Monday was going to be my last day with them. And it was a fabulous last week with them, with lots of tears and love. And so Monday, the new owners came in and introduced themselves, ignored me, like as I was standing there, didn't even acknowledge that I was there as I handed my baby over to them. And the next day, they did something ridiculous. They did away with the profit share.
Oh.
The profit share was our secret sauce. It's what made everybody, it changed behaviors. It made them feel so vested in the outcome that they did everything right because of that. And it was very short-sighted of them. And I had invested into this new entity, and I was on the board of that new entity, and I could only handle it for about 6 months. And I was like, let me out of here. Can't take what you've done to my baby. But they said all the right things in the courtship, how much they loved the culture. That profit share thing was brilliant. But it was just,
So how many of the same employees still work there?
Now there are only 9 of them. So there were 52 there when I left. And within about a year, only 12 of them were there.
Oh, wow.
Because it just became like every other company. And then now there are 9 of them. And yeah, it was very sad. But I remain, it's been 4 years, and I'm still in constant contact with them. I think today I've had interactions with 3 former employees. I don't think a day ever goes by that I'm not with one of them or the other by text or email or lunch or breakfast or something. And they call me Lucy.
That's funny.
I love that. You told a great story too about paying a proper wage, which is very important. And as you were talking about the profit share piece, because I feel the same way. I always want people to feel that they are valued on when it's payday, and I want their best work. And when you the way you told the story about your experience at the big box store, which I'm sure probably anybody that's been to the big box store has had that experience, and then just the tell of what a day in the life of a single mom who is making minimum wage looks like, and although she wants to show up as her best, it's hard to do that when you're working 2 jobs and you're exhausted and trying to be a mother, because that's what it takes just to make it. And so it's really important to be thoughtful of your people in that way, to pay them a wage that they can have a good living off of. And the profit sharing piece, the fact that that was monthly, because it's very true that when you said, so how many times you heard people say, I'm staying until the bonus payout.
Yeah.
I've heard people say that about quitting, about retiring, about all
Yeah.
those things. And so when the bonus payout, then I'm going to retire, or I'm going to resign. So the fact that it's monthly, and that you were transparent with the employees in such a way, and it was at an equal playing field. Again, that creates the sense of value and appreciation from an employee perspective, that, you know, it's not just me here making money for someone else, that I also am receiving this value.
Yeah, you know, the first profit share check I gave was $7, and then it grew and grew. And then, you know, the last one that I signed was $1,500. So if you're an employee making $20 an hour working on the factory floor, and every month you're getting a check for $700 or $1,000 or $1,500, it really does change lives. It helped people, you know, buy their first homes and get out of debt, pay off student loans, and, you know, even just afford to keep the lights on. So it was real. The fair living wage part is really important, and I think I've gotten more feedback from that chapter than anything else, and people from all around the country writing to me to say the way you tell the way you paint the picture of that woman, and how a subpar wage affected her and her family and her employers, how it affected them by her not being paid enough to even pay it. To be paid, she wasn't paid enough to pay attention.
Yeah.
And how it affected everybody involved negatively was powerful.
So they were all part of a profit share, but not part of an ownership, correct?
They were not. By the time, you know, I guess you saw that I don't have a college education. I you know, just have a high school diploma. Didn't know anything about business when I started the company. I didn't know anything about an ESOP. And by the time I got to realize, oh, I could actually make them all owners, the company was really, the valuation was really out of their reach, and we just couldn't find a good way to make it work. But I'd already started doing the profit share from day one, and encouraged them to save this money and put it aside, and that made up for it to me. And then when I sold the company, I gave 15% of the sales price I gave to the employees. And at that point, it wasn't split evenly. It was split based on tenure. It just, you know, somebody that had been with me the entire 14 years would definitely get something, you know, more than somebody who'd been with me 14 months.
Right. Wow. That's still, I mean, that's such an incredible culture. And even the way the employees took care of one another. The couple who, I think they had 5 kids and barely speaking English. Kids. Yes. And so the car, and then the filling the car with the baby items, and just going that extra mile to make sure that their colleagues have what they need as a human being or as a person, just speaks volumes about what they thought of one another.
I think that our company proved, yes, empathy is innate, and some of us have more of it than others, but I believe that it absolutely can be learned, and that it's contagious. And nothing showed that better than my employee Gortza, whose family were Serbian refugees, and she had saved up all her profit share checks. And then at the end, I think she got about $35,000. She had only been with us a couple of years. So she combined that with the profit share and went and paid off her parents' mortgage.
Wow.
Because she had overheard them talking about the family back in Serbia needing help. And her father had said, as soon as we get the mortgage paid off, you know, we'll send everything to them. And so she said, I'm paying it off. And she said, I have to give all the credit to LetterLogic, because before I worked here, it never would have occurred to me to do something like that. But because of the empathy that is nurtured here, made me think about that. It was the proudest moment I ever had as a leader, to see her taking care of her parents that way. She was 26 years old. You know, most 26-year-old women, you give them, she probably had 50,000 saved up then. They're going to buy a car or something like that. She didn't. She paid off her parents' house. And I had lunch with her a couple of weeks ago, right before the election, and we were both like this. And she had just bought her own, first house. So that was pretty awesome. Sorry for crying on y'all.
That's okay.
Oh no.
So can I ask, Marlita, can I ask a question? So to women that are on here, why do you think it was done better? Do you think it's done better because you're a woman and you had more empathy for what other employees feel and need and struggle than, not to bash men, than a man would have on knowing the needs of women and other people who are less fortunate?
I struggle with this because I think women have a more innate empathy, and psychologists say that they do, although they don't know why. But when I do public speaking and I talk about the profit share, and I give the 3 steps to increasing profitability, and I approach it from the standpoint of empathy being at the core. But these are 3 ways, key ways you can show empathy. Women pay it lip service, and it's the men who are doing it. So I've got several male-owned companies in Nashville that are doing it now, and a couple in North Carolina that have reached out to me and said, I started following exactly what you said, only men. And I think it's because often women entrepreneurs especially don't approach things from the standpoint of abundance. They're fearful. We're governed by fear, which is what keeps us from being more successful. We don't take the same level of risks, and we're just not doing enough.
Well, I always say, because I do so much political fundraising, that women will spend $150 on a pair of shoes, but I have to beg them to write a $50 check for a candidate sport.
Yeah. And, women are really bad about investing. The same thing, they'll spend, people buy purses for 10 grand. What are they thinking? But won't invest in something that will yield great results for them down the road. It's crazy. I looked at my profit share thing as an investment in the people, and I described it as it was 10% of a pie this big. It was an investment. I wasn't given anything, and that investment made that pie huge. You can't see how wide my arms are right now, but it made the pie huge. And as gross as it sounds, it made me rich. Investing that 10% in those people.
So if you had a female mentor, and you may have said this and I've just flew past me, if you had a female mentor along the way, who would you say?
I had more male mentors than women, but Elizabeth Crook was my a female mentor, and she was brought in as a hired coach. She was actually working for Mark at the time as on his board, and he had suggested that I meet with her. It was when I first started dating him, and he introduced me to her, and she's
fabulous.
She's brilliant, but she's the one that I talk about in the book, rolling up a sheet of paper and saying, "Here's your diploma." And telling me to quit telling people you don't have an education. They won't know it. But just having more confidence in myself.
I'm done at this moment, Lolita. He's going back to you.
Okay. All right. Well, Sherry, before we close out for the night, what advice would you give to the women that are on this call. And I think we have like one gentleman, but what's your one solid like nugget? If we take nothing else away, take this.
Empathy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the subtitle of my book was Transformational Leadership Through Empathy. And my publisher didn't think that was sexy enough. And so it's now Maximize Profits by Investing in Your People. How powerful would it have been to have at a time when our nation needs empathy and leadership so much for my title to have been what I planned for it to be?
Mm-hmm.
Empathy is transformational. The ability to put yourself in the shoes of the people you're dealing with and to see the world through their lens can do nothing but make you a better leader.
Wow, it's powerful. Thank you, Sherry. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You for Lunch with Lucy. Again, this is my second time. I've read the book twice. And
Thank you.
every time I get a different nugget from it, and it is a read. If you have not read it, I encourage you to read it. There is something in there. Even though it's from the perspective of a CEO, these are things that you can take with you just to be a better human being, just to be a better friend, a better colleague, a better partner. So it is really good. Now, even the conversation about the friendship that imploded. So we most of us have had a situation like that as well. There's just so many lessons and nuggets in there. So we really appreciate your time. And thanks everyone for coming tonight for our book club. Please follow the Women's Political Collaborative to see our upcoming events. And if you're not a member, please become a member. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.